My family threw a luxurious dinner without me on my birthday. Oh, today was your birthday? Make sure to clean up after us. I quietly packed my bag and headed to a restaurant worthy of my special day. When they came to ask me to clean up, they found my letter. Mom's face froze and my sister was left speechless. Birthdays are supposed to be special, right? A day where family and friends celebrate you, making you feel loved and appreciated. But what if the people closest to you treated it like just another ordinary day, worse, like you didn't even matter? That's exactly what happened to me. I came home excited, expecting maybe a small surprise, a cake, or at least a simple happy birthday. Instead, I found my family laughing and enjoying a fancy, luxurious dinner without me. The table was filled with expensive dishes, sparkling drinks, and beautifully plated desserts. My stomach twisted, my heart sank. But the worst part? It wasn't an accident. My mom glanced at me casually, sipping her wine before saying, "Oh, today was your birthday? Make sure to clean up after us." I stood there frozen. No one else even acknowledged me. Not my sister, not my dad, just an empty seat where I should have been. That's when I realized I wasn't going to beg for a place at their table. Quietly, I packed my bag, grabbed my wallet, and left. If they wouldn't celebrate me, I would celebrate myself. But before I walked out, I left behind something they never expected. A letter. I walked out of the house without looking back, the cool night air hitting my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk. My heart pounded, but not from sadness. No, that feeling had faded into something sharper. Clarity. They had made it clear where I stood in their lives. I tightened my grip on my bag and started walking toward the city. I wasn't sure where I was going yet, but I knew I needed to be somewhere that made me feel valued, even if I was the only one doing the valuing. I scrolled through my phone, looking up a restaurant I'd always wanted to try, one far better than the cold, dismissive atmosphere I had just left behind. As I walked, memories started flooding in, each one like a puzzle piece clicking into place. This wasn't the first time my family had treated me like an afterthought. My mom had always doted on my sister, showering her with attention. My dad? He barely noticed anything unless it involved work or something that directly affected him. And my sister, well, she knew she was the favorite and used it to her advantage. Growing up, my birthdays were always second to whatever else was going on in their lives. One year, my sister had a dance recital on the same day, and my birthday dinner was pushed aside like an inconvenience. Another time, my mom simply forgot until late at night, when she handed me a last-minute card and said, "Oh right, happy birthday." It stung every time, but I had always convinced myself that maybe next year would be different. But this? A full-blown celebration without me? This was something else entirely. I shook the thoughts away as I reached the restaurant. It was warm and inviting, the kind of place where people came to enjoy themselves, where waiters smiled and treated you like you mattered. The host greeted me with a friendly smile. "Table for one?" He asked, and for the first time tonight I didn't feel the weight of those words. I nodded. Yes. And I'd like something special tonight. I sat down, placing my bag beside me, and let myself breathe. The rich aroma of food filled the air, making my stomach rumble. I deserved this. I deserved to enjoy my own birthday. As I sipped on a drink and waited for my meal, I pulled out my phone. A part of me expected at least one message, maybe even a half-hearted text from my sister. But there was nothing. Not a single missed call. Not even a fake, "Hope you're having a good day." I placed my phone down and exhaled. I had left them my letter. A short but pointed message explaining exactly how I felt. I didn't expect them to suddenly care, but I wanted them to know that I noticed their treatment, that I wasn't going to just accept it anymore. The waiter brought my food, a beautifully plated dish that looked like something straight out of a magazine. I smiled, taking the first bite, savoring the flavors. This was what I deserved. A night where I wasn't an afterthought. Meanwhile, back at home, I could only imagine their reactions when they found my letter. My mom probably scoffed, dismissing it as me being dramatic. My sister might have laughed, thinking it was just another attempt to get attention. But my dad? He was the unpredictable one. He didn't show emotions often, but when he did, they carried weight. As I continued eating, my phone buzzed. My heart jumped slightly, but when I picked it up, it wasn't a text from any of them. Just an automated message from a random app. I let out a small laugh, of course. I wasn't going to let that ruin my night. I finished my meal, paid my bill, and walked out into the quiet streets. The city lights shimmered, and for the first time all day, I felt free. I wasn't sure what would happen when I eventually went home. Would they be angry? Would they even care? One thing was certain. I wasn't going to be the same person they had walked all over for years. I took my time walking back, letting the night air clear my thoughts. The streets were quiet, the occasional headlights cutting through the dark. For the first time, I wasn't rushing home. There was no reason to. No one was waiting for me. If anything, they were probably still enjoying their night, unaware, or worse, unbothered by my absence. As I neared my house, I hesitated. A part of me wanted to keep walking, maybe find a place to stay for the night just to prove a point. But I needed to see if they even noticed my letter. Did they care? Did they finally realize what they had done? I stepped inside quietly. The house was still lit, the dining table a mess of empty plates and half-finished drinks. My stomach twisted. They hadn't even cleaned up. The laughter was gone now, replaced with low voices coming from the living room. I inched closer, heart pounding. Mom was holding the letter, her expression unreadable. My sister sat beside her, scrolling through her phone, while Dad stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. The air was thick, like they had been discussing me, but not in the way I had hoped. "She's overreacting," my sister muttered, not even looking up. Mom sighed, shaking her head. "I don't understand what she wants from us. It's not like we did it on purpose." Dad didn't say anything. His eyes were on the letter, but his face was blank. I couldn't tell if he was angry, disappointed, or just tired of the whole thing. A part of me wanted to storm in, to demand an explanation. But something stopped me. Their words stung. Not because they were true, but because they weren't. They had done it on purpose. Maybe not in an outright cruel way, but in a way that proved where I stood in their lives. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. Their heads turned instantly, surprise flashing across their faces. "Oh, you're back," Mom said, her voice too casual, as if I had just returned from a quick errand rather than walking out on my own birthday. I crossed my arms. "Did you read it?" She waved the letter slightly, looking at me like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "We read it. But honestly, what were we supposed to do? Drop everything and suddenly throw you a party? You know your sister had an important event today." I stared at her, disbelief bubbling inside me. "An event? That's your excuse." I let out a short laugh, shaking my head. "You planned an entire dinner. A fancy one. Without me. And you're acting like I should just be okay with it?" My sister rolled her eyes. "You're making it a bigger deal than it is. We didn't exclude you on purpose. You just weren't a priority." She said it so casually, as if she hadn't just confirmed everything I had ever suspected. I felt my chest tighten. Not a priority. That was the truth of it, wasn't it? I turned to my dad, the only one who hadn't spoken yet. He was still staring at me, his expression hard to read. Finally, he sighed. "Look," he said, rubbing his forehead. "You're upset. I get it. But this walking out, leaving this letter like you were running away? That was childish." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You think I'm the childish one?" My voice shook slightly, but I steadied it. "I had to leave, Dad. Because sitting here, watching you all celebrate like I didn't even exist? That hurt more than anything. And the worst part? None of you even noticed I was gone until you saw that letter." For a second, silence filled the room. My mother looked at my father, as if waiting for him to say something that would put an end to this conversation. My sister huffed and went back to her phone, already over it. But my dad? He just sighed again, shaking his head. "I don't know what you want me to say." And that was it. That was all I needed to hear. I felt something in me snap. Not in anger, but in acceptance. They weren't going to change. They weren't going to suddenly realize their mistake and apologize. Because to them, I was always going to be second place. I nodded slowly. "All right," I said, voice calm. "I get it now." Mom raised a brow. "Get what?" I looked at each of them one by one, taking in their faces, their indifference, their unwillingness to understand. "That I don't belong here." With that, I turned and walked toward the stairs, ignoring my mother's exasperated sigh and my sister's muttered drama queen. My dad didn't stop me. None of them did. Back in my room, I locked the door and sank onto my bed, staring at the ceiling. The weight in my chest was heavy, but it wasn't sadness anymore. It was something else. Determination if they weren't going to care about me. Then I was done wasting my energy trying to make them. I sat on my bed, staring at the walls of my room, feeling a strange emptiness settle over me. The conversation downstairs kept replaying in my head, but instead of making me angry, it only confirmed what I had known deep down for years. They weren't going to change. They had never cared the way I wanted them to, and now I was done pretending that they would. I reached for my bag, the same one I had taken earlier, and started packing. This time I wasn't just leaving for dinner. This time I was leaving for Real. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew staying here wasn't an option anymore. As I shoved clothes into my bag, my phone buzzed. For a second my heart leapt, thinking maybe, just maybe, one of them had finally realized what they had done. But when I checked the screen, it was just a message from an old friend I hadn't talked to in months. *K. Just saw it's your birthday. Hope you had a great day. *. I let out a small bitter laugh. Funny how people who barely knew me could acknowledge my birthday, but my own family couldn't. I typed back a quick thanks and tossed my phone onto the bed. Downstairs I heard movement. Cabinet doors opening, dishes clinking. They were probably cleaning up now, only because they had to, not because I was supposed to do it. The thought made my stomach twist. How many times had I taken care of things for them without a second thought? How many times had I made excuses for them, convinced myself they didn't mean it? I zipped up my bag and stood still for a moment, listening to the faint voices coming from the kitchen. It didn't sound like they were talking about me anymore. Maybe they thought the whole thing was over. Maybe they assumed I had calmed down, that by tomorrow everything would go back to normal. But they were wrong. I grabbed my phone and checked the time. It was late, but I didn't care. I wasn't waiting until morning. I needed to leave now, before I convinced myself to stay, before the weight of years of disappointment settled over me again. I opened my bedroom door quietly and stepped into the hallway. The house was dim, the only light coming from the kitchen. I could hear my mom talking to my dad in a low voice, but I couldn't make out the words. My sister had probably already gone upstairs, her life moving forward as if nothing had happened. I took a slow breath and made my way toward the front door. Every step felt heavy, like I was walking away from more than just a house. I was walking away from them. Just as I reached for the doorknob, I heard my mom's voice behind me. "Where do you think you're going?" I froze, gripping the handle tightly. I could feel her eyes on me, sharp and impatient, like she was annoyed rather than concerned. I turned slowly to face her. She was standing by the kitchen entrance, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "I'm leaving," I said simply. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Don't be ridiculous. It's late. I don't care." She sighed, rubbing her forehead like I was some burden she had to deal with. "Look, I get that you're upset, but walking out like this isn't going to fix anything." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "You think I'm trying to fix this?" I gestured toward the house, the life I had spent years trying to fit into. "There's nothing to fix, Mom. This isn't my home anymore." For the first time, something flickered in her expression. Maybe surprise. Maybe something else. "So what? You're just going to leave? Where will you go?" I shrugged, gripping my bag. "I'll figure it out." A pause. Then she shook her head. "You're being dramatic." I met her eyes, my voice steady. "No. I'm just finally done." Something about the way I said it made her falter. I could see it, the slight hesitation, the way her lips parted like she wanted to say something else but didn't know what. Before she could speak again, my dad's voice cut through the room. "Let her go." We both turned. He was leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, his face unreadable. But his voice, it wasn't angry. It wasn't even disappointed. It was indifferent. Like it didn't matter if I stayed or left. That hurt more than anything. Mom glanced at him, as if waiting for him to take it back, to say something different. But he didn't. He just looked at me, then away like I was already gone. I swallowed hard and turned back to the door. I opened it, stepped out into the night, and closed it behind me without looking back. For the first time in my life I was free. But as I walked down the empty street, my bag slung over my shoulder, I couldn't ignore the cold, sinking feeling inside me. Because even though I had always suspected it, deep down I had still hoped they would stop me. That someone would fight for me. But no one did. The night air was colder than before. Or maybe I was just feeling it more now that the adrenaline had faded. I walked without direction, my footsteps echoing in the quiet street. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and for a split second, the night air wrapped around me as I kept walking, each step taking me further from the house I had once called home. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I ignored it at first, assuming it was another empty birthday wish from someone who barely knew me. But then it vibrated again. And again. Something told me to check. I pulled out my phone, my fingers stiff from the cold. 3 missed calls from an unknown number. Then a text popped up. "Hey, this is Mark from the restaurant. You left your wallet here. Call me." My stomach dropped. I stopped walking and checked my bag, my heart pounding. Sure enough, my wallet was missing. How could I have been so careless? That wallet had everything: my ID, my debit card, cash. Without it, I had no way to pay for anything, no way to get anywhere. I exhaled sharply and dialed the number. It rang twice before a deep voice answered. "Hey, that was fast. You just left a little while ago, right?" "Yeah," I said, still shaken. "Thank you for letting me know. Is it still at the restaurant?" A pause. Then, "Actually, no. Someone already picked it up." I gripped my phone tighter. "What? Who?" "Your sister," he said, sounding unsure. "She showed up maybe 15 minutes ago. Said you sent her to grab it." My mind raced. My sister? That didn't make any sense. She hadn't even texted or called me. Why would she bother picking up my wallet when she barely acknowledged my existence? "Are you sure it was her?" I asked, my voice sharp with unease. "Yeah," he said. "She even showed me a picture of you and her together. Said you had a fight and asked her to get it since you didn't want to come back inside." I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. Something wasn't right. My sister never did anything for me, especially not after the way things had gone down tonight. And why wouldn't she have told me? I thanked him quickly and hung up, my heart hammering. I stared at my phone, waiting, but there were no messages from her. No missed calls. Just silence. I turned around and started walking back, faster this time. I had no idea what was going on, but I wasn't about to let her hold on to my wallet like some kind of power move. The thought of going back to that house made my skin crawl, but I had no choice. By the time I reached the house, all the lights were still on, just like before. My stomach twisted. I stood outside the front door, taking a deep breath before pushing it open. Inside, my sister was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. My wallet was on the coffee table in front of her. "You're back," she said, not even looking up. I walked over and grabbed my wallet. "Why did you take this?" She finally met my eyes and smirked. "Because you're being ridiculous. Running off like you're some tragic main character. I figured you'd come crawling back eventually." I clenched my teeth. "I wasn't coming back. I was fine until you stole my wallet." She shrugged. "You left it at the restaurant. That's on you." Something in her tone sent a chill down my spine. There was something off about the way she was acting, too casual, too smug. Then my mom walked into the room, her arms crossed. "So you're done with your tantrum?" I let out a breath, gripping my wallet so tightly my knuckles turned white. "I just came for my stuff. I'm leaving." "You're not going anywhere," she said firmly. I froze. "Excuse me." "We had a long talk while you were gone," she continued, glancing at my dad, who stood in the doorway, silent as ever. "And we decided that we're not going to let you make a scene like this. You're staying here where we can make sure you don't do anything stupid." My blood turned cold. "What does that mean?" "It means," my sister said, her voice dripping with amusement, "you're grounded." I stared at them, waiting for the punchline. But there wasn't one. They were serious. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "I'm an adult. You can't ground me." Mom's expression didn't change. "You don't have a choice." Something in the air shifted. My heart pounded. I suddenly realized what this was. Control. They hadn't cared when I left because they didn't think I could leave. They thought I'd come crawling back, that I had nowhere else to go. And when I didn't, when I actually walked away, they had to find a way to drag me back under their thumb. I stepped back, gripping my bag. "You can't keep me here." "You have no money," my sister said, her voice like a knife. "No ID. No way to get anywhere. So yeah, we kind of can." A sickening realization settled over me. They hadn't just ignored my birthday. They had planned this. Maybe not at first, but once I walked out, they saw an opportunity. And they took it. I inhaled sharply, my mind racing. I needed to get out of there. Now. I looked at my dad one last time, silently pleading for him to say something to stop this. But he just stood there watching unmoved. And that's when I knew, this wasn't just about tonight. This was about every moment that had led up to this. Every time I had been overlooked, dismissed, treated like I didn't matter. I turned on my heel and ran toward the door. "Don't you dare," Mom's voice rang out behind me. I grabbed the handle and yanked it open, stepping out into the cold, into the night, into freedom. They didn't follow me. Not this time. Because they knew. I wasn't coming back. The cold air hit my face as I stepped out, but I didn't stop. I kept moving, my feet hitting the pavement with purpose. My breath came fast, but not from exhaustion, from something deeper. A rush of emotions flooded through me. Fear. Relief. A strange, undeniable sense of freedom. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. That house, that life, it had never been home. Not really. And now, finally, I had broken free. The streets were mostly empty. The distant hum of the city the only sound around me. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled out my phone. I had no plan. No idea what my next step was, but I refused to let that stop me. I scrolled through my contacts, searching for a name that felt safe. Someone I could turn to. Someone who wouldn't see me as a burden or an inconvenience. Then I saw it. Emily. I hesitated. We hadn't talked in a while, but she had always been different from the others. A real friend. She had seen glimpses of my home life, had even told me once that if I ever needed a place to go, she'd be there. At the time, I hadn't taken her seriously. But now? Now I had no choice. I took a deep breath and hit call. It rang twice before she picked up. "Hey, it's late. Are you okay?" Her voice was groggy but instantly laced with concern. I swallowed hard. "No." My voice cracked. I hadn't expected it, but saying it out loud made everything feel real. There was a pause. Then a rustling sound like she was sitting up. "Where are you?" I told her. "Stay there," she said immediately. "I'm coming." For the first time that night, I let out a shaky breath. A small weight lifting off my chest. I wasn't alone. I found a bench near the street and sat down, hugging my bag close. The city lights flickered in the distance, cars occasionally passing by. My mind raced with everything that had happened. The dinner. The realization. The way they had tried to trap me. They hadn't expected me to walk away. They had counted on me needing them. But they had underestimated me. A car pulled up minutes later, and Emily jumped out before I could even stand up. She took one look at me and pulled me into a tight hug. I didn't realize how much I needed it until that moment. "Come on," she said softly, guiding me to the car. "Let's go home." Her words hit me in a way I wasn't prepared for. Home, a real home. Not a place where I was ignored, where I was made to feel small. But somewhere I could just be. The drive was quiet at first. I stared out the window, watching the city blur past. Then Emily spoke. "Do you want to talk about it?" I hesitated, then nodded. And for the first time, I told someone everything. The years of feeling invisible. The way my family dismissed me like I was nothing. The way they had looked at me tonight, like I was overreacting, like my pain didn't matter. Emily didn't interrupt. She didn't tell me I was being dramatic, or that I should have handled it differently. She just listened. And when I was done, she reached over and squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing," she said firmly. "You deserve better than that." The words settled deep in my chest. I had spent so long questioning myself, wondering if I was expecting too much, if maybe I was the problem. But hearing her say it, so certain, so unwavering, it made me believe it too. By the time we pulled into her driveway, I felt lighter, even if the weight of the night still clung to me. Emily led me inside, and the warmth of her home was immediate. It smelled like vanilla candles and something familiar, something comforting. She handed me a spare blanket and a pillow. "Crash here as long as you need," she said. I nodded, feeling my throat tighten again. "Thank you." She gave me a small smile. "You don't have to thank me. That's what friends are for." As I curled up on the couch, exhaustion finally pulling at me, I let myself think about the future. For the first time, I wasn't filled with dread. I didn't know exactly what came next, but that was okay. I had gotten out. I had chosen myself. And that was the best birthday gift I could have ever given myself. Somewhere out there, my family would wake up and realize I was really gone. Maybe they'd be angry. Maybe they'd pretend not to care. But it didn't matter anymore. Because I wasn't looking back. Not this time.